Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for those watching over the internet. Good morning for them too. Today's February 5th. Welcome to Becerra de Menezes. There, it's on. Yeah. Welcome to Becerra de Menezes. As you know, we are an Spiritist association. We're non-profit. We're 501c. We function strictly through volunteers and donations. And our mission is to study Spiritism and promote the practice of spiritual and material charity. Our telephone number is 305-477-4148. Our email is info@spiritist.com. And our website, if you want to visit, is www.spiritist.com. We would appreciate the phones to be off or in vibration because we are broadcasting live in YouTube through www.youtube.com/Becerra Miami, one word. In today's reading, as usual, we're going to read from our Daily Bread. This book was written by Francisco Candido Javier and dictated by the Spirit of Emmanuel. We're going to be talking about chapter 26, Immediate Task. Be shepherds of God's flock that is under your care, serving as overseers, not because you must, but because you are willing, as God wants you to be, no greedy for money, but eager to serve. This is in Peter, was said by Peter, chapter 5, verse 2. Naturally, following the norm of just possibilities, no one should deny help or assistance to the companions that solicit a reasonable request from afar. However, it is our obligation to pay attention to Peter's teaching regarding our immediate task. Some individuals deliberately give themselves to disquieting thoughts of dreadful events projected by the sick mind of others that will probably never take place. They waste a lot of time suggesting formulas of action or uttering useless laments. The work of others and any future occurrences, in order to be examined, will always require a great deal of consideration and reflection. Further on, it is indispensable to recognize that the difficult problem at hand or at a distance has the finality of enriching our own personal experience, thus enabling us to solve other and more intricate enigmas of the path. It is for this reason that the message from Simon Peter is profound and appropriate for all times and for all situations. Let us attend to the imperatives of the divine service, which is found in our personal landscape, not by pressure, but rather with spontaneous goodwill, escaping more and more from our own personal interest, and firmly and attentively assisting in good causes as much as possible. It is sometimes reasonable for the individual to preoccupy himself with world issues, we all do, with the transformation of the collectivities, with the positions and responsibilities of others. But we must not overlook caring for God's flock that is under our care, for those that we are supposed to take care of. For reflection about today's reading, in today's reading, Emmanuel reminds us that even though we should not deny help to those companions that are in need, we must always pay attention to Peter's teaching that warns us that some individuals deliberately give themselves to events projected by sick minds, and that we need to examine the situation with great deal of consideration and reflection. He advises us that we need to pay attention to the crucial path given to us by the divine service, which is localized in our own personal landscape and interest, in our own hearts. We need to be aware of all situations and willingly to help others. But are we helping the flock that God has placed under our care? And to begin today's gospel, could you please help me with a prayer? Close your eyes, relax, put behind all those thoughts from the past week, and elevate your thoughts to the Almighty. Dear Lord, we're going to start thanking you today for all the blessings we have received in the week that just ended, for the opportunity to be together once again with all these brothers and sisters. We thank you for this spiritual center, for all those spirits that you have sent to us today, our mentors, our guides, and also for the opportunity to serve you by helping those in need. Dear Lord, we ask you to continue to guide our path so that we don't deny help to those that are in need, but always paying attention to the teachings that warns us of those individuals that deliberately follow events created by a sick mind. Dear Lord, we also would like to ask you to bless all the brothers and sisters that are here today, those who were not able to come, and those that are watching us live. And finally, and to begin today's gospel, dear Lord, we ask you to bless our brother Gilberto Rostis, so that your message be placed on his lips and be placed in our hearts. We ask you this, dear Lord, in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, so be it. Today, our brother Gilberto is going to be talking about chapter 5, Blessed are the Afflicted. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. Okay, so yes, we are going to be talking about this chapter. Chapter 5 is the largest in the whole gospel, according to the spiritism. And it's easy to understand why it's the largest. It's really, really, really fundamental. It's really, really important. It's what makes you make it or not. It's so we're gonna go through it, and I wish I could put it in a way or bring it to you in a way that could transform the way you see life and yourself. But let's see. So it's always start with the promises from Jesus. This is the way. When you open the chapter, the first thing you're going to see are Jesus' promises, which comes from the Sermon of the Mountain. And according to Matthew, Jesus said, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who cry, for they will be consoled. Blessed are those who suffer from hunger and thirst, for they shall be filled. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." So Jesus Christ, of course, we know from other passages that according to himself, he was here to help the poor, to help the sick, the people that were really suffering, people that were really open and hoping for consolation. And then, of course, the Sermon of the Mountain brings a lot. These are only a few of the things that he said in the Sermon of the Mountain that really exemplifies or put in words what he actually did here. Now, despite all that, there's a lot of doubt. Despite Jesus' promises, many people have difficulty to understand the need to suffer in order to achieve happiness. But this is really, why do I have to suffer to be in a position to be happy? Well, this is a key thing we're going to cover here today. Of course, doubts that we are looking at is why some suffer more than others. Why some are born to live in misery. Why is it things never seem to work for some? So those are some of the questions that are already, that are actually in the chapter. And just to bring that up here to kind of make our point here, although Jesus told us what he told us, okay, we are not yet at the point where we take his word, his commands, and just follow it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. We're still learning. And we're learning we're learning in the hard way. And in the meantime, we have all this question, why do I have to suffer? So, and now, of course, we all look for happiness, and we chase happiness every minute possible. But then when we stumble and fall, and all those stumble and fall, all the question, this common question is, why do I have to suffer? Well, let's talk a little bit about the causes of our suffering. So, if God is infinitely just and good, he won't act capriciously or with partiality. So that's a statement. We all think that's true. And therefore, these misfortunes of this life must have just causes. Okay, so let's pay attention to this for a minute. So here we're talking about the law of cause and effect, which runs through this whole chapter here, along with, or underneath the other one, which is the infinite justice, sense of justice, from God. And then we say here, well, if for every effect there's a cause behind it, something triggered. So when you think about why you suffered, then you have to think about there must be a cause behind my suffering. And then you think about why would God want me to suffer? And then comes again, say, well, you caused it, not God. And this is a very, very key message for today. Now, those causes might come from past lives or for present life. So we suffer for the things that we did before we arrived in this incarnation. We are spirits that have been, around as a spirit for long, and we are all created equal, and we've been in a journey of improving ourselves, and of course we started without any knowledge, without any experience, just the God's law in our consciousness, and we've been trying to work with that, trying to get familiar with those, and then practice it, internalize it, be the Son of God that we're supposed to be at the end when we are done, which is perfect. However, we made a lot of mistakes up until now. So when you look at us right today and you look at the mirror, so that's just your new visual. Inside of us, there's a spirit that's the same, has been the same for long years, many incarnations, and it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress. So we're going to talk about some of the stuff from past lives and from present life. But remember, we are work in progress. We're not done. We're not wrong. We're not bad. We're just we just reflect the stage we are at this particular incarnation or this particular day. Tomorrow we're going to be better than today, hopefully. Since we're talking about affliction here, the title is about the afflicted. So what is affliction? We are not in harmony with ourselves. We're not in peace. We're not stable. We're not even complete yet. We have a long way to go. In the meantime, though, because of all that, we feel down sometimes, we feel sick, we feel bad. We can be too anxious or too concerned. We can be a little bit too depressed, and sometimes we suffer from low self-esteem, and there are many, many other ways we can feel this affliction. That elephant, and here on top, right on top of your chest, and they say, well, gee, everything seems all right. Why am I feeling like this? How come I'm not happy? Well, your spirit is not serene. Your spirit's not in peace. And that's why you feel like that. So what are some of the causes of affliction in the present life? When looking at the origins of earthly misfortunes, it must be recognized that many are natural consequences of character and of the behavior of those who suffer from them. So I like this particular, this comes from the gospel, of course. It says consequences of our character. Do we have bad character? Again, always look at yourself as I'm at in this particular period of time during my long journey to the perfect world. And our character is a reflection of how much we have managed to improve our spiritual, spiritual quotient, if you will. How much we have done to prepare ourselves to follow the path of Jesus. And so we have a lot of those things like pride, selfishness, and before I continue, remember, we all have this. It's not that one, some of us do, some don't. The thing is, to what extent I already managed to minimize my pride, for example, and selfishness, because those are the pillars of everything else, all the bad stuff that we still carry as instincts or some other way. They're not perfect. Therefore, we still have some pride. Now, you may have more than others or less than others. Same thing for selfishness. And then, of course, we'll have ambition, lack of discipline, lack of perseverance. So lack of control over our desires. Sometimes we marry for material interests. We sometimes lack moderation. All the excesses of all types, all kinds. So that's part of us today, and that's what makes us make mistake. I guess we have to. So it's part of our character, and we're bringing in, although we're talking about causes of affliction in the present life, see something you are doing right now that's causing you suffering, either immediately, in this life, or something that's going to carry over to the next life. But the fact of the matter, you're making mistakes today, like offending people, and that's nothing. We all do that. So, not that I like to do it. And of course, some others are committing crimes. A lot of people still have a lot of hate in their heart. So those are things that we're doing right now. However, it reflects what we brought over from previous lives. So we have not started from zero in this incarnation, but we are committing all those sins, if you will, this life. And in many cases, or depending on what you're talking about here, you're going to pay right now, and some of them are may be carried over. So causes for affliction in present life, still bluntly, you can ask your consciousness, and you see that you can almost say, had I not done such and such thing, like offended somebody, or had done so and so, like being more humble, right? I would not find myself in such a situation at this moment. So I think we have all gone through that at this particular age. Even the youngest people here say, well, I shouldn't have done that. Now I have to pay this. almost like the first thing that came to my mind is a traffic ticket. Oh, I have not gone. Had I not gone through that red light, I would not. Okay. So yes. And who then, after when you look into that, who then is responsible for man's afflictions, if not ourselves? The man himself. So then, in a great number of cases, man is the cause of his own misfortunes. Yes, there's nobody else you can blame for your misfortunes. You definitely cannot blame God. And so who are you going to blame? You can blame your wife, your husband. So that works fine for your ego, but not for your spirit. And what works fine for your ego does not really improve yourself. Only when man works at bettering himself, both morally and spiritually, intellectually, will he be able to avoid this category of suffering. So when you stop making mistakes or committing sins, not making mistakes, but committing sins against the world, or it turns out to be against yourself, then you have to make up for that. This incarnation or next, which I think is okay. In the Spirit's book, question 614 about the moral laws, this is part of the answer of that question that says, what are the divine laws, or what are the natural laws? And then they explain, and then they say, a man would only become unhappy when he distances himself from God's laws. So, don't want to suffer? Okay, there's a way. Go to God's laws and follow that, and then you're not going to suffer, not long term. So, cause of affliction present life still. Talk about atonements. We suffer from a lot of sort of atonements. Envy causes a lot of atonements, a lot of expiation, if you will. Hate, jealousy, resentment, bitterness, revolt, rebellion, cursing, bravery, revenge. And there are many other ways the atonements will manifest, will be coming from. And then they will manifest itself in so many different ways and type of settings, type of situations, context, like within the family. So that's the one that we feel a lot. I mean, it's very close to us. When you don't know what you're doing, when you are not being who you should be within your family, when we're not taking the pain, we're not suffering with your son, for example, when you're not carrying your duties the way you should, there will be consequences, and you're going to suffer from that. Of course, same with relatives. Even within the religions, other communities. So depending on how you behave yourself, you're gonna see the impact of that thing is coming back to you as adversely. And then in the workplace, in many other settings, you're gonna see these atonements. Now, what about the past causes for affliction? Okay. Although there are misfortunes in this life caused by man himself, there are also others which seem to be completely strange to him and which touch him like fate. Yeah, this is one of the things that most people will, particularly if you don't have a good, let's say, background in terms of how life works. Simply the fact that we are eternal spirits. We've been here before. We have had other lives. And all you know is that you were born in this world and you're going to die and this is going to be it. And then you were suffering, and then, it's very difficult for you to understand. And then that's what it says here. It could be completely strange to you that you're suffering from certain things when you say, I've never done anything wrong in my life. I've never done, never offended anybody. I've been such a great husband or father and this and that. Why am I suffering like that? Well, the answer has to do with the stuff that you did prior to arriving in this time in the planet Earth. So then you're going to see things like, that is very difficult for you to understand, like the loss of a loved one or the breadwinner in a family. So, how come God did that to me? Accidents which no amount of foresight could have prevented. Or reverses in fortune which precautions and judicial counseling could not avoid. So you're going to see those things as fatality, like something, well, this was, my fate, as opposed to my doing. Natural disasters. So who can, say, well, I have nothing to do with natural disasters. Why am I, was I right at the epicenter of this hurricane? Let's talk about Freudian things. Infirmities from birth, especially those which make work or the earning of livelihood impossible, such as deformities, insanity, idiocracy, idiocy, etc. Yeah, you see a lot of people that come in with certain infirmities that won't allow them to work, to go to school, to do things that most of us can do. And they were born like that, and now so how come? I have not done anything to deserve that. Go back. Well, you can't go back, but you can say, well, God is just. There must be a reason. I just don't know what it is, and I don't know the answer right now, but one day I will. So by virtue of the axiom according to which every effect has a cause, these miseries are effects which have to have a cause. And if we admit that God is just, then that cause must be just. So we're going to be talking a little later, a lot more during the next session, 11:30, about resignation. So it's very important that if you don't want to suffer, if you don't want to maximize your suffering, okay, the way to do it is to accept God's decision for you. Okay, past cause for affliction. Suffering due to causes prior to the present existence, as well as those which originate in the present causes, are frequently the consequences of errors that we committed. Tribulations may be imposed on the spirits who are ignorant or have become hardened in order to induce them to make a choice with knowledge of what they're doing. So we all, those that have been, in the Spiritist Center and studying and reading for long, we are we are actually directed, recommended to look into everything we suffer as a lesson that's being taught to us, as something that's calling our attention to something that we need to learn from. Sometimes you don't understand, even though sometimes you don't understand. But if you trust God and if you understand life as Jesus taught us, and then you're going to say, well, if we have been hard and not humane, we may be treated with harshness and inhumanity. So stop blaming your boss for everything. No, you can still blame him. But then you pray for him, okay? If we were too full of pride, we may be born in humble circumstances. We look at, without the knowledge that we have, we look at rich people saying, "Wow, boy, they are privileged, right?" And how come I'm not here, with half of the money that they have? Well, I'll tell you. You see it that way with your human eyes, but being rich is, makes you less prone to be prepared for happiness after this life, because you are, like when Jesus came over here, he said, I'm here for the poor and the sick. The rich was not interested in change, let alone accepting Jesus talking about other lives, let alone Jesus talking about wait until you see what's going to happen the other side. Right? This just come to my mind here. I don't know if I told this. I work, apart from this and my other jobs, I work with non-profit organizations. And one day I was, myself and uh, my partner went to visit a non-profit organization for the first time. First time that I worked with that partner, and we both arrived at about the same time at this non-profit organization. But he arrived like 2 minutes before me, and he parked his Porsche there. Then I came in at the time I was driving a Focus. I said, gee, what am I going to park my Focus now? So I had to make the decision because, and then I parked it side by side with his Porsche. So, okay, so be it. And then we got into, he was already inside, and I would say, hey, how are you, blah, blah, blah. But I was still thinking of Jesus. No, this guy, he didn't have to come over here with a Porsche, because we're going to a place where, this humility is all over the place. And, but then immediately a voice came to my mind and said, wait until you see how difficult it's going to be for him to leave all that here. So, okay. Now let's go to the meeting. If we have been miserably selfish or made bad use of our riches, we may find ourselves deprived of the necessary means of survival. If we have been a bad son or a daughter, we may suffer from the behavior of our children. So this is very important. So we're talking about rich and poor. So if you are rich and you have not managed to use that particular situation to the benefit of others around you, and sometimes even the world, like Bill Gates, well, then you have not been a charitable person. You have not learned about charity. You have not learned about loving each other. And then you're going to have perhaps to come at the other side as a poor guy praying for the rich people to be more generous. That's how you learn your lesson. So, come to me, all those that are afflicted, and I will relieve you. That's Jesus said in another passage. The thing is everybody, everybody that's suffering in this world going to be, ready for this relief that Jesus has promised? Well, we're 7 billion people here. We are all suffering. So Jesus was not really talking to the 7 billion people. Let's see. So the question, all men and women would be that, when we die, Jesus is going to be on the other side waiting for us? Well, only those who learn the benefit from all sufferings. Because we suffer to learn. However, let me see if that's here. Those who found in pain the challenge needed to overcome their own shortfalls and a way to grow morally. Because there's 2 ways to suffer. And you can suffer with resignation, like we've been talking about so far, understanding why you suffer and taking the best out of that, making the best out of that suffering, because that suffering is here right now with you to teach you a lesson. So you can learn from that lesson, help other people in the same circumstances. Or you can spend your life complaining about it, rejecting it, blaming God, blaming the spirits, blaming everybody for how much you suffered in this life, being the perfect victim of of heaven. Well, that suffering does not bring you the benefits that it should, meaning you have not progressed at all. Worse than that, you have not accepted God's designation for you, what God put in your hands for you to work with. So that kind of that way of suffering does not. Let's say for a minute that you spent, you're going to live 80 years. Some people live more than that. Let's say you're going to live 80 years and you complain all the way along, those 80 years about your situation. Sometimes it's one thing, and another time it's going to be you're never happy, you're always complaining. And then after all, you go to the other side, and two things might happen. One is somebody's reading the Sermon of the Mountain and turns to you and say, "Are you in this list?" And that's a woo. Not so sure, right? Okay. And the other thing that's going to happen is say, "Hey, you have not done what you're supposed to do. You have to go back and do it again. This time I'm going to give you 105 years, so maybe make it better." So that's the kind of situation we're looking at here. Those that leverage their faith to position themselves above all painful and expiatory situations, so those are the ones that are going to benefit from the suffering of during this incarnation. So in the other book from Kardec, Heaven and Hell, Kardec says, or Spirit says, don't know, that if we all understood this law of cause and effect, we would all be in a greater, much better situation. Because, if you don't understand, if you think you can just get by or get around the rules, or you can just perhaps go unnoticed, none of those work. Whatever we do, and we don't do it right, it comes back to us for try it again. And sometimes, depending on what you do, you have to make up for that. So all of those who succeeded in transforming difficulties, this is very interesting, transforming difficulties into lessons, and then those lessons into experiences, and then you're ready to go. So we're all faced with challenges, place, calling it difficulties here. So you transform that into something you're going to learn from. You're going to sacrifice yourself, if that's the case, so that you go through those atonements, so those difficulties in a way that you grasp the lessons you learn from it. And then, of course, as you do it, it's not something that you go just read in a book. You have to experience those difficulties, and then you're going to grow. Okay, to conclude, if we want to change an effect, we need to work on the cause of it. So what we did to ourselves and what we did to others that made them suffer. So if you want to change an effect, the fact is you're suffering as we speak here. We have to go and fix the cause. You're not going to go back, and fix the cause and erase all the suffering. What you're going to do is you're going to do it right this time. And so next time, you're going to be good. It is not to be thought, however, that all suffering in this world denotes the existence of a determined shortcoming. Many times it is simply an ordeal requested by the Spirit, which will help it towards purification and active progress. So atonement is always a test, but a test is not always an atonement. Okay, this is in the part of the chapter that's going to tell you that not necessarily what you're suffering right now comes from something bad you did in the past. It could be that you are in such a level like Ch.V and others, right? That you choose to go through certain trials, certain atonements, as part of further developing yourself and purifying your spirit, right? So there is that. But I'll tell you, this is more common in the high level spirits that are about to live this type of a world of trials and expiations. Okay, our last day before I say goodbye, I found this. Our last day on earth, the person you became will meet the person you could have become. So imagine that. So you are now here your last day, and then you started to see all your parents. You know, oh, but you're dead. What are you doing here? Right? So probably my time to go. That moment you're going to meet the person you should have become. This is anonymous, not come from Jesus. Maybe inspired by him, but I don't know. But when you meet that person that you should have become, it's too late. Too late. So it better become the person we should become right now, ahead of time. So with that, have a great and peaceful weekend. Okay, so we are going to take the next few minutes to make our closing prayer. And of course, we want to start by thanking God, thanking Jesus, and thanking all the good spirits that have been with us, helping us in this morning, this Sunday morning, where we gather here and through the internet to learn from Jesus, from his gospels, from his missionaries, so that we can not only minimize our suffering, but doing it in a way that get us closer to God. We know it's a long journey, but we also know it's a journey that one day Jesus had to take. And all the good spirits that are now teaching us. And we want to learn. We are eager to have the experiences that are going to make us better. But we are still very weak as human beings. And that's why we implore the help of the good spirits, our guardian angels, all of those that care for us, so that we're able to get out of this journey, to finish this journey a few steps ahead compared to when we arrived here. We are so thankful for having everything we need to get better and closer to God. So be it.